And welcome to The Great Gatsby Chapter 4, where we get to see Gatsby at lunch in all his glory. So let's jump right on into it. Okay, I like this. I like the color tone in this, nice and gold. Remember, gold's one of our colors. At the beginning of Chapter 4, it's like, why are we reading this? There's rumors. We have more rumors. He's a bootlegger. He's one time he killed a man who had found out that he was nephew to von Hindenburg and second cousin to the devil. And I like how it progressively gets more ridiculous. Like, oh, he's a bootlegger. Oh, he killed a man. Now he's like nephew to like an enemy of America. And now he's, the second cousin to the devil. So it just like progressively gets more unbelievable. I think that's so smart of Fitzgerald, the author, to write it that way because it's very difficult for us as the readers to know if there's any truth in these rumors. Like, because obviously he's not a second cousin of the devil. I mean, hello. But is he a bootlegger? Like, is he a spy? Did he kill a man? Like, sometimes they're plausible, like things that could happen, and sometimes they're just so far fetched. So it's very difficult to know what's true and what isn't true. And that should tell us something a little bit about Gatsby. I mean, will we ever know, who he is? Okay, so Nick goes through this list, which I know when you were reading it, you wanted to die, because why are we reading this list? And in modern day, like we don't have any sort of connection to the names. But if you read this book in like the 1920s, if you read it when it came out, you would be able to recognize some of these names. And he gives like all sorts of people, like actresses, actors, and producers came to this party, politicians and police officers, gangsters, sportsmen, socialites, and businessmen. I mean, anybody from all walks of life came to this party. I mean, that should tell you something a little bit about Gatsby. I mean, what type of person can get not only the chief of police to come, but also a known gangster and then know that nothing's going to happen at the party? I mean, how much power must you hold to be able to get both of those people to come? I mean, it's just amazing. So we have a bunch of names that are listed. Muldoon, which is a popular Irish name, like it's O'Donovan, Kellers, Corrigan. So we're seeing like those Irish immigrant names are coming in, and in the 20s. We just had that big movie called The Irishman that came out, but there was a lot of gang affiliation with Irish immigrants back at the time, so that would indicate that. He referenced Stonewall Jackson, the Confederate general during the war, like it says, and the Stonewall Jackson Abrams of Georgia. So there's like some military connection there. He references Abrams was the first name of a man who wrote and told of Jackson's death. So he's like combining ideas happening there. He mentions Roebuck, like as in the company Sears, Roebuck and Company. Now I know ours closed in the mall, but maybe you remember when you were younger, there was a big store called Sears. So he's got big like business titans and that are at this party as well. So it's not just all gang related. He has like people who are big in business. He has Bedecker, which is a huge German publisher. So he has all of these like very big like titans of their industry at this party. So that's just how powerful Gatsby is. You know, and it's interesting that he's using real names, and I want you to think about it for a minute. Like, why would Fitzgerald include real names in a fictional book? I mean, and think about it. If you were reading a novel and these were some of the people that came to the party, like Lily Kardashian. Okay, well, Lily Kardashian isn't a person, but you know the last name Kardashian. And because you know the last name Kardashian, you associate certain emotions and ideas with those people. So it helps you understand, like, if that type of a person was there, this must be what the party was like. Or if it was Al Capone Alcatraz, like the big, gangster, or if it was the Clintons, or if it was Rachel Murdoch, and Murdoch's the last name of the guy who owns Fox News. So, imagine if they could get all of these people to come to one party. It would be saying something about that person, to be able to do something like that. And that's what Fitzgerald is doing here. He's giving you all of these names of people. He's very, very powerful. But there is sort of something that we're not seeing. Who isn't at this party? That's kind of the real question. Who isn't at this party? Okay, so we go on, and I suppose we've already read it. So who isn't at the party? It's Daisy. Daisy's not at that party. We know now because we've read this chapter that he holds all of these parties for Daisy, and she's the one person that never shows up. So Nick and Gatsby, they get to go on this car ride into the city because remember they don't live in New York City. They live on West Egg, and so they have to drive there. And we get this great description of Gatsby, and it says he was never quite still. There was always a tapping foot somewhere or the impatient opening and closing of a hand. So he's never relaxed. He's never settled. It's almost like he's always got something, somewhere to go, something to do, something to be. He has this like nervous sort of tick to him. And we get this great description of his car. It was a rich cream color, bright with nickel and mirrored with a labyrinth of windshields that mirrored a dozen suns. And it's important to note in this chapter what color the car is. Can you see what color that is? It's a cream color, which does have a little bit of yellow in it, but it's mostly sort of white. By the chapter 7, the color of the car is described differently. The color changes a bit. So keep your eyes out for that when you get to chapter 7. On the car ride, Gatsby, he wants to know sort of what Nick knows about him. Like he knows everybody is talking about him and everybody has all of these rumors about him. And so he wants to sort of clear some of that stuff up. So he just like sort of jumps right into it and he's like, I'm the son of some wealthy people in the Middle West, all dead now, convenient, educated in Oxford because all of my ancestors have been educated there. And Nick sort of notices that he hurried the phrase educated at Oxford or swallowed it or choked on it. And with this doubt, his whole statement fell to pieces. So is Nick believing Gatsby right now? Does he think that it's true? And then Gatsby goes on and says that he's from San Francisco. And that's a mistake on Gatsby's part. And Nick realizes that this is a mistake. How can Nick tell that Gatsby is lying? Look again at what's being said here. And tell your desk mate what in there is a lie. I hope you were able to see that San Francisco is not in the Middle West, right? It's not in the Midwest. We live in the Midwest. San Francisco is in California. That's not the Midwest. And Nick would know that because Nick is from the Midwest. So if anybody's going to know where San Francisco is and if it's part of the Midwest or not, Nick is going to know. At this point, it's like Gatsby's just lying about everything. He's lying about all of these things. And Nick doesn't believe him. He says, with this doubt, his whole statement fell to pieces. Nick doesn't believe him. I guess I'm going to underline some stuff for you. Right? And then he continues, like Gatsby like doubles down on it. And he's like, after that, I lived like a young Raja, it's like a young prince, in all the capital of Europe, collecting jewels, chiefly rubies, hunting big game, painting a little, and trying to forget something very sad that had happened a long time ago. And it's like, he's the most interesting man of the world, right? He travels around and he hunts like big game. There's like lions and he collects jewels and but of course he has his sensitive side. He paints a little bit. So it's like, it always reminds me of that commercial of that guy, that beer commercial. He's like, he's the most interesting man of the world. Like that's what Gatsby's painting himself out to be. And Nick says, with effort, I managed to retain my incredulous laughter. And we have to know what the word incredulous means. Like that's kind of important here. And if you don't know what it means to doubt. He's doubting it. Like he doesn't believe any of it. So Nick is not buying into any of Gatsby's stories. And then Gatsby doesn't stop there. Not only does he travel around the world, is he this great person, he's a war hero. Of course he's a war hero. I mean, if you're going to like be lying about your past, why wouldn't you make yourself a war hero? He says, then came the war. I was promoted to be a major, and every allied government gave me a decoration, even Montenegro, little Montenegro down on the Adriatic Sea. So he's a war hero. I mean, it's just crazy. Like, Nick is not buying into any of it. But Gatsby does something. He does something so needed. He reaches in his pocket and he grabs a medal and he puts it into Nick's hand. And it's the war medal that he won. And then he pulls out a souvenir from Oxford and he pulls out this picture and he's actually at Oxford and it's a picture of him. And I hate to tell you this because we're so doubtful in the modern age, but in 1920 you couldn't fake it. Like this medal does exist. It is real. And it doesn't just like because he had somebody made it. He really won it. His name is engraved on it. I've read the whole book. I'm gonna tell you right now, he won this medal. He was at Oxford. And so it's like Nick's brain, he doesn't know what to do with it because it seems so unbelievable. Yet he has these tangible things to prove that it was true. And if Nick sort of was doubtful at all, if he was not in love with Gatsby before, he is in love with Gatsby now. He says, then it was all true. I saw the skins of tigers flaming in the palace, the Grand Canal. I saw him opening a chest of rubies to ease with their crimson lighted depths the gnawing of his broken heart. And he just, hook, line, and sinker, he is fallen for all of it. Now, I'm not going to tell you if it's true or if it's not true. I mean, he has the medal, he has the picture, he was some of these things, but the story was sort of unbelievable until that moment, and it's hard to think of a reason why he would have these you know pieces of proof unless they weren't true. But I really want you to think about it, and Nick allows like all of his doubts to just like disappear now because he's seen these things. They get to lunch and they meet this guy here with the hat on, Meyer Wolfsheim. Now notice his last name, Wolfsheim. So for like taking characteristics of animals and applying them to the person, like we did with owl eyes. Owls are intelligent and they're smart and they can see things, right? He's got his big glasses on and he could probably see something about Gatsby everybody else couldn't. Well, now we have Wolfsheim and he's a wolf. So what does that say about who he is? And he just happens to like come to lunch and see them there. So he was a business associate of Gatsby, and we have his really specific description. He's a small, flat-nosed Jew, raised his large head, and regarded me with two fine growths of hair, which luxuriated in either nostril. And because of this is Nick, and Nick like notices things about the way people look. All he's like can see this nose hair that are like poking out of the bottom of Meyer Wolfsheim's nose, and the only thing he can focus on are these like nose hairs wiggling back or forth. So if you were reading this chapter and you kept hearing like the nose, that's what he was referring to. And he's wearing like these weird cufflinks. He says, I see her looking at my cuff buttons, finest specimens of human molars. And molars, if you didn't catch it, they're teeth. And I did Amazon this, and you can buy yourself a set of human molar teeth for I think the small price of $10.99. So if you wanted to get yourself a pair of human molar cufflinks, by all means, you can buy it on Amazon. But it is creepy because who has human teeth as jewelry? Like, ooh. Nick was like, is he a dentist? Like, that's how naive Nick is because he's like, oh, why does he have all of these, teeth? And then Gatsby's like, no, he's not a dentist. So let's really think about this. Like, what kind of associate is Wolfsheim then? Wolfsheim says, I handed the money to Kutzpa and I said, all right, Kutzpa, don't pay him a penny till he shuts his mouth. He shut it then and there. And he says, I understand you're looking for a business connection. And it's not connection, it's connection. Because he has this sort of like slur in his speech, his little colloquialism or regionalism that he talks with a little bit of an accent. And then Gatsby says about him later in the chapter, he says, he's a gambler. He's the man who fixed the World Series back in 1919, which was a true thing that happened. Like, this really did happen. Like, they threw the game and they got caught for it. And that's another thing that I love about this book. It just weaves truth and fiction together. Truth and fiction, truth and fiction, truth and fiction. You should really be thinking about maybe how that's related to Gatsby and himself. But the one thing we have to ask ourselves is like, why would Gatsby introduce Nick to Wolfsheim? Because we can plainly see that a man who rigged the World Series and, has teeth as a jewelry isn't probably a person we want to be around. We're like, oh, yikes. So why would Gatsby like risk almost like his credibility to introduce this man to Nick. What's he supposed to do? So conveniently, Gatsby gets a phone call